Hi, everyone. We're
Welcome
back.
back.
We're back, everyone. I'm Daniel.
I'm Julia.
And this is our second attempt to do this because I forgot to hit record, so we just kind of stared at the screen and talked. But it is apparently recording this time, I promise.
Yep.
I promise you.
Promise me.
If they're watching
It's
it, they know that it's
recording this time.
recording, obviously.
But, so we're going to this is part 2 of Glasgow.
Right.
And
you know where we are.
We're going to focus on the Glasgow Modern Art Museum.
Focus.
We're going to focus on that.
I'm a little distracted. You're so pretty.
It deserved its own its own video.
This is the front of the museum. One of the most famous things is this gorgeous statue with a cone on its head.
Yeah.
There aren't always 2 cones. There's always at least one. Why?
No one knows.
No.
It's when it got put up there, and
some snarky person, and people kept putting it back.
After that. So
now it's iconic. They sell shirts with this.
They shirts and postcards and magnets and stuff with it on there.
So they just leave it there.
You know, that's a good example of just owning up to the silliness. As you can see, there's lots of construction going on.
But just the exterior.
It's just the exterior wall,
Fear
the
not.
entrance. So they actually have a big sign, that big yellow sign that's like, "We're open. Please come in." So we did. So we did.
So let's go, everybody.
So,
yeah,
I mean,
it's pretty straightforward.
It is an art museum, so of course there's going to be a lot of
exhibits.
Your own interpretations, exhibiting.
Good luck, everyone.
Exhibits, and it being that it's an art museum,
yes,
they have a huge focus on diversity and inclusion, which is really great. But
this is us not ranting.
Let's start with colors. Everything was so colorful
so
and pretty.
This is, when we say domestic, think like couches and chairs and still modern art, though. But these are the kinds of things. They're reinterpreting cups. See? I just said couches. That was foreshadowing.
Different mediums. You have like ceramics and statues, and you have paintings and stuff. So, yeah, really cool stuff.
So this is above a doorway. I really like the kind of...
Yeah, I'm not even sure how they got
glass.
How they got that up there without, like, they must have used some sort of genie, because it's a tall door,
but it's
and
a narrow
it's above
spot,
a tall door.
It's pretty awkward location.
Yes, it's actually technically a half floor down, and below that is another exhibit that will show.
We'll talk about in a second.
Here.
This is one of your favorites.
I like it. I don't know why. I was looking at it and I'm like, this kind of reminds me of, it's very, Beatles album cover to me. So I thought it was kind of cool looking.
All right. So these are
more
we'll
domestic
leave it up
things.
there. I think it's clear enough that you can read it. Ceramics. There are actually people's pictures on the inside.
These were it's as a little bit of a talk about duality, being from countries, being immigrants or fleeing from other places to come to Scotland, and
Turkey,
setting a table,
like
and what it means to kind of have a duality.
Flip forward
really quick. So this was the
remember those golden
display
letters
below the golden pipe letters on one side. In this kind of half floor, they had books, all these books for kids, and it really was a display. It wasn't just some sort of, reader's nook and pushed in the corner for kids.
I mean, they can open them up. These aren't like nailed to the wall.
They had chairs and they had seating for kids, but it really was a display because on the other side of this area was a
very small area.
It was a video. All I had was a TV playing, and there was some seating, and it was all about the history of slavery in Scotland in particular. And it was really great because they were very good about owning up to their own own type of slavery that they had.
I think that's fair to say.
In Scotland, and the sins that came from it.
Was just a case that had a few abolitionist and historical artifacts.
So some things that some kids can't touch it, of course, but it's things that a kid would recognize that, but it's not too jarring to talk about either.
Sure.
But really, really, really good exhibit here.
Shall we move on? Yeah. All right. This was
The non-political this exhibit they had was by Sam Ainsley.
Yep.
She is
Cobalt Blue.
It's called Cobalt Blue. She is a local, these are Scottish artists.
These are
so. When you look at it, you're like, are those pieces against the wall, or is it one giant thing that's made to look 3D? It is actually 5 different pieces,
and the wall is just
that color. Although
I'm sure it was chosen.
It was chosen,
but it's not
for that.
Anyway, the shapes are counties in Scotland, or I believe the far left, right? I don't know which is which. That one, the far one with the tree.
Yes.
That's, as far as I remember, an actual island. So,
yes.
Anyway, that's what these are. Do I remember which is which? No. And I'll own
that.
But
it's Googleable, so you can Google it. We have some of the information on the next slide.
Oh, yeah.
So,
see, we just did this, and I already forgot what the next slide was.
So it talks a little, she describes it a little bit, and
we'll leave it up there enough for
leave it up there
read,
so you can
or not read,
gather some of the information and Google it if you will, and you can learn more about it.
You're sliding out of frame.
I am.
Come here.
I am. Oh.
All right.
Well, moving on to the next one.
Yes, this is more from the same exhibit.
Yep. Just a lot of cool stuff. So this was a little different. This is a different exhibit. This is obviously much more statue.
Well, it's 3D.
3D art. You're not allowed to touch anything.
Obviously.
However, this display can be moved around at the discretion of the curator. So it's really cool. I really like this idea that it gives a little bit of the artistic knowledge to the curator so that they can display it however they like.
Now, I was reading in one of the notes on this one that apparently they'd lent it somewhere and they had gone a little too far, I guess you could say, and removed some of the color, and it became this whole thing. Like, well, you said artistic license, and we didn't realize that would make it lose its color, and who has to pay for it. So, I mean, like, there's drama everywhere,
There's drama.
And I'm not going to try to
There's
recap
drama
it,
in
but
the
it
art
was
world.
amazing.
Who would have thought there'd be drama in the art world?
All right.
Yeah.
We can't help ourselves.
Just another cool,
beautiful,
kind of big, huge mural, but it kind of just looks like a sketch, so it was kind of cool to share. Yeah.
We are at the center of the museum.
This is the center of the museum.
Is this a good place to talk about that exhibit? That we don't have pictures of?
Let's talk about that exhibit.
Up, no, maybe here.
I want to say it was the top floor, maybe.
Well, let's just say here.
There was a really cool timeline,
of
exhibit
this building,
of the building,
not the museum, because this building wasn't originally built as a museum. And so it talked about how slavery created this building. Now, we're not talking about the White Houses built by slaves. We're talking about the money that made the people who built this building rich built this building. That money.
And that money came from the North Atlantic slave trade.
Right. The transatlantic slave trade. Right.
Yeah.
That's what... And so I think there's a lot of challenges for countries that directly benefited. This will not be the last time we bring up this issue. It's in several other cities.
Yes.
And the question is, well, what do we do with the building? Like, how do we make sure, okay, we can stop doing slavery, we can stop supporting these things, and we can even give money back somehow. But what about the building itself? Do we burn it to the ground? Do we turn it into
because
housing?
of its history?
Is the sin forever?
Yeah.
And there is no one answer to this. In this case, they said, well, what if we make it something for the community? How much did this museum cost?
$0.
Right. So, I mean, there's that. If you lived here, then at least it's serving a positive thing to try to address this.
And I would like to think that with the community at large, and especially in the last display where they talk about being Black and British, that this is some sort of
ongoing dialogue
between the different communities that were affected by this.
Right.
And having the people who own this museum or who run this museum actively take on, look, we take ownership for our part in your suffering, and this is how we can amend that. That's fantastic.
There are plenty of museums that
Don't talk about their history
or
at
their
all.
sins, and they're much more culpable.
Culpable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Than this one is. This is just a building that is no longer owned or operated by the people, and it's a building.
That just exists.
And they decided to make it into this museum, and it's like, and even it is taking ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And there are places where it's like, no, you did terrible things. The organization that currently owns it. But enough about the British Museum.
Enough about other museums out there. But that's one of the really cool things about this museum, and why
I know you need a Rosetta Stone.
We stopped a few minutes to talk about it.
What we were talking about.
Yeah, it was very heartwarming to see a place own so much.
I want to talk about this exhibit.
Oh, this exhibit is really cool.
This is a very large exhibit in terms of square footage or square meters if you're
takes up
not
a whole
in America.
floor.
It's just
floor.
vast. Is there a shot that gives it? Yeah, there's a good distance thing. So I'm going to start here and chat for a second and then go backwards because I put the slides out of order. Basically, the people who made this exhibit said, what if there was a brand, a couple brands, and how can we talk about branding in clothing? And so we get things like this. Well, if it's a brand, it's going to have a runway show, and this is going to be the glorious, awesome piece.
And for anyone who doesn't know anything about runway shows or the fashion industry, usually part of a collection's big ticket item is going to be some sort of gown, whether it's a ball gown or wedding dress, and so that's why
it's obscenely not wearable.
Right? Yeah. No real person can wear this. Even if you had
a wedding dress, it's not actually that wedding dress. It might be by the same brand, but they've toned it down. And so a lot of the exhibit was about the difference between this kind of brands, and later on we'll see these kind of parts of the brand. This is like active wear and athletic wear, and see the zero? That's the branding.
Right.
And somehow it's everywhere. There's the arrow pointing down. That's one brand. This is the other brand. And so it's a big thing is about who gets to wear what kind of colors. There's a lot of different things here. But obviously they're not. None of this is out of cloth. In case
it's all cardboard.
It's paper, cardboard. That's
painted,
the whole thing.
Paper, painted cardboard, and what's really what I really liked about it, what I really appreciated about it, is that there isn't just one discussion about the fashion industry. They even
collapsed.
They even talked about how the fashion industry is actually racist in a lot of ways.
Yeah, there was a lot of different takes. It's very complicated.
Unfair. Yeah, it was a great
lot of
display.
thoughts going into this, and unfortunately for all of you watching at home, this is the end of the slideshow. I mean, I guess we could go backwards and talk backwards, but that would be a little silly, wouldn't it?
But it was a great modern art museum. Is it? I mean, it's comparable to some of the other ones that we have been to.
Yeah, definitely some of the better ones.
And not because of the size. I mean, you can't really
That's
judge
not
it by the
fair.
size. It's the quality of what they have.
When you talk about modern art, it's not about the size. It's how long you have to pause and go,
Yeah.
Huh. And it stays with you. So this is definitely up there in museums, and definitely recommend. I know last museum we got a little humph about how rough a time we had in the city, but we want to be clear, we still had amazing experiences in this and every city, just like we loved Macbeth, even if the seats were tight, even if the route was crazy. The play itself, was fantastic, and it'll stay with us. And the same thing for Carmen, and the same thing for the things we haven't told you about. No spoilers. But we do have one more Glasgow video to share before we move on to the next city. But we hope you enjoyed a little bit of this museum. It was one of the better ones. Till next time, everyone.
Until next time.